morning about the mind and the brain. Some may believe that the mind and the brain are the same, but in fact they are not. The brain is the organ that is used by the mind to express thought. And if thoughts are the motivating power of the universe, and it is through the mind that one progresses, it is necessary to understand how the mind functions through the brain. The brain itself is incapable of thought, but is the organism through which the thought comes into manifestation. So I'm going to talk about the infinite mind and the finite mind. The infinite mind is the mind of God, infinite intelligence. It's the motivating power of the universe. Infinite mind has created all things and governs all things by immutable law. Infinite mind creates from within itself through the power of thought. The finite mind is the mind of the individual and is capable of reasoning and judging. There are many different theories regarding the finite mind, and the theory advanced by our spiritualist philosophy is that there is one mind functioning upon three phases or planes. These three levels or phases are the conscious, the subconscious, and the superconscious. The conscious plane of the mind is the result of direct impulses coming from any of the five physical senses. The conscious mind is used to determine which thoughts are chosen to create one's reality. One can assert willpower to bring that which one desires into reality through the power of thought. The subconscious mind, sometimes called the subjective mind, is the connecting link between the physical body and the universal spirit. The subconscious is the repository of all past conscious states. Every thought we think, positive or negative, goes into the subconscious, and because that level of the mind does not have the power of reason or cannot differentiate between constructive or destructive thoughts, it acts without discrimination on all that is received. Beyond the conscious and subconscious planes is still a higher phase of mind that is called the superconscious. This is the highest level of awareness. It requires much inner work to reach this level. It is said that only masters who have traveled far along the pathway of spiritual enlightenment can truly grasp the power of the superconscious or the God mind. The mind is part of spirit. In the physical, the mind functions through the physical brain. The particular locality or seat of consciousness in the brain is said by A.J. Davis to be at the center of the brain. The brain. Our brain is a huge computer. It stores everything we learn since the day we were born. When we were young, we learned by observing and being taught by those in our social structures, such as families and teachers. Let us take brushing our teeth, for example. At a very early age, say around 2 or 3, most of us begin to learn to brush our teeth with the assistance of a parent. As we get older, we're told to brush our teeth and we know what to do because we learned what to do when we were younger. We have those memories are stored in our brain. It's become a pattern for us, a way of being. A few months ago, I attended the Landmark Forum, and I was asked to search my life back to my earliest recollection of an embarrassing moment. So I thought back to about when I was 5 years old. I was raised a Roman Catholic. My mother was Protestant, my father was Roman Catholic. So my dad would take me and my brothers to church every Sunday, faithfully would go. And This one Sunday, I was really excited about going because I was so proud of myself that I learned and memorized the Our Father. So I wouldn't have to use the book to recite it. And as we were saying the Our Father, I was saying it loud and proud, and I messed up. And not only did I mess up, but I messed the whole congregation up. So I was very embarrassed, and I was really horrified. And I remember curling up in the pew, just trying to disappear as the congregation picked themselves back up and kept on going. I was just in that pew, and my father's looking at me, and I was like, I just wanted to be invisible. I didn't want to be there anymore. So when we got home, of course, my father tells my mother, and I just kind of relived the whole embarrassing moment again as my father's laughing about it, telling my mother about what happened at church. So that kind of defined who I became all the way back when I was 5 years old. I wanted to be invisible. And every time an embarrassing moment happened to me, I wanted to be invisible. And I, in fact, became invisible. Searching through my life, I was to find out how this act had played out in my life. And I didn't realize how devastating it actually was. Because in being invisible, I was alone. I didn't want to be with anybody. I didn't want to go out and make friends. I wanted to stay by myself. I wanted to be in my little bubble, and I wanted to be safe. Even in my job, joining as an air traffic controller, pilots never saw who I was. I was just a voice on the other line. So in essence, I was still invisible. So I was okay with that. And that is just how my life played out. And it's a subconsciously choices that I've made to be invisible. Interacting with people, I wouldn't want to confront anybody because I wouldn't want to rock the waves. I wouldn't want to cause conflict. So I was just silent, and I just kind of went with the flow. And that's just how I was. And I didn't know any other way of being. So it was kind of like I was stuck. I was stuck in this cycle until I recognized it. And once I recognized it, then I realized that I could do something about it. I had the power to create something new. I had the power to create a new possibility. I had the power to create and find out who I truly am. But that would take action on my part. I would have to search, and I would have to go through all of the areas of my life, my relationships, my marriage, my kids, my parents, my brothers. I would have to search each one and find out what story I was creating in each one of those relationships. And then I had the choice. The ultimate choice was up to me on whether I chose to keep it that way or whether I chose to create something new, to create a new relationship. So I just went way off on there, so somebody needed to hear that. Okay. So our life is about patterns. And I can't even imagine how many opportunities that I have missed, but actually I really can't. by going back and reflecting, because I was predicting, analyzing, and reacting. All of these patterns that were stored in my brain. When I was found in a similar situation, I would have an emotion that would come up, and it would be automatic, and I would react. And sometimes I wouldn't even know what was happening. And I am a parent of 3 daughters. And I used to get so frustrated at my children when I would ask them, why did you do that? And their response was, I don't know. And they actually were telling the truth. Because if you don't self-reflect and you don't figure out, you don't know why you're doing some things. I also did an exercise on reflecting on a reaction that I had, an emotion and a body sensation. And I chose to do this on my road rage. I had this road rage. And it wasn't in keeping with who I wanted to be, because I really wanted to be loving and peaceful. So this road rage, you know, as I got into the car, it was like I was a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation going on here. And all I was to do first was to observe it, just observe it happening and observe what happened. And as soon as somebody pulled in front of me, and I always like to keep a safe distance, but keeping a safe distance, that always allows somebody to go in there and fill my safe space, I call it. So as soon as somebody would go in there and fill my safe space, I would put my foot on the brake. And as soon as somebody made me put my foot on the brake, I would get these emotions that would well up. And I mean, it was just like anger, and it would go all the way up. And then I'd start saying things that normally aren't too nice, and maybe even do a gesture or two. And then everything would calm back down again, and it would go right back to a calm state again. And I observed this for quite a while. And then what I tried to do was I tried to start interrupting it. And I was actually successful with that. So it didn't happen instantaneously. And these patterns of behavior that we create and that are stored are there forever. So you can change and influence them. It's going to take time, but know also that there are times when, you know, that same pattern of behavior is going to rear its ugly head again. So whenever that happens to me, I just start laughing. Once it gets to about midsection, I just start laughing. So we are able to change our behaviors, but we first have to recognize it and observe it ourselves. There's one more thing that I want to talk about today, and that is the blind spot. You know, just like cars, we have blind spots too. A blind spot is a pattern of behavior that is done that may be disturbing to others and that we don't even know we're doing it. So I found out that I had a blind spot, and I didn't know it was a blind spot until after I went through this series of courses. But I was on station on the aircraft carrier, and I had a boss that would come up to me and talk to me, and I was in charge of a group of individuals as well. And he would look at me and say, "Stop doing that." And I didn't know what he was talking about. So I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he was pretty adamant about it, telling me, "Yes, you know what you're doing, and I need you to please stop that." So I had no clue. I thought he was a little crazy. It happened a couple more times. And I'm like, I really don't know what I'm doing. How can I change something that I don't know what I'm doing? So the one time he caught me midway as I was doing it. He said, there it is. And I was able to hear what I was doing, and I was doing the, and that he was finding disrespectful for what he was telling me had to be done. But it was a way that my body had responded to some stressful situations. So it wasn't until he brought that to my attention that I was able to actually stop it. But like I said, it wasn't automatic. It took a little while. So with that, I'm going to leave you with a quote from Socrates. Man, know thyself, and thou shalt know the universe and God. And I also want to tell you that each and every one of us has a spark of the divine within them. And it's part of our journey to discover that. But the journey's up to us.